New Year's morning arrived in silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise, where even your own breathing sounds out of place. I woke before dawn, the cold already pressing into my bones the way it always did in Montana winters. Habit made me reach across the bed, empty. 2 years since Eleanor passed, and my body still expected her warmth beside me. I pushed myself up, glanced at the clock, just after 6. Another day, another morning alone. I pulled on my coat, made coffee in the kitchen we'd shared for 4 decades, and avoided the blue mug with the chipped handle. Couldn't use it. I couldn't throw it away either. Outside, the thermometer read 18 degrees. Snow whispered down from a sky that promised more. That's when I saw it. A suitcase, sitting on my porch like it belonged there. At first, I thought maybe a delivery had been dropped at the wrong house, or some strange New Year's prank. But as I stepped closer, my chest tightened. The leather was expensive, too expensive, and stamped into the side, in gold lettering, were 3 familiar initials. BRB. Brandon Robert Bennett. My son. I carried the suitcase inside, my hand steady even though my heart wasn't. The latches opened easily, almost too easily. Inside, nothing. No clothes, no documents, just a single white sheet of paper, placed perfectly in the center. 4 numbers were written on it. 00005. I stared at them, turning the paper over, hoping for more. There was nothing else. No message. No explanation. 5 minutes past midnight. That was all. Training from my younger years kicked in. I checked the seams, the lining, every corner. That's when I felt it. A small bulge hidden in the fabric. Inside was a brass key. A number was engraved on it. 189. The weight in my chest grew heavier. I called Brandon. Straight to voicemail. I called my daughter Melissa next. Same thing. By 7:30, I called both of them 5 times. No answers. No texts. Nothing. I told myself they were busy, that I was overthinking. Then my neighbor Pete stopped by. He mentioned something that made my blood run cold. A silver car had driven past my house before sunrise. Melissa drives a silver car. As the snow began to fall harder, I stood on the porch holding a key I didn't recognize, staring at numbers I didn't understand, knowing, deep down, that this suitcase wasn't a gift. It was a warning, and whatever it was counting down to was coming at 5 minutes past midnight. I didn't know it yet, but by the time the clock reached 00005, I would learn the truth about my children, and it would cost me everything. The phone started ringing just after 8. The sound cut through the house like a blade. I stood there for a moment, staring at it, as if letting it ring might somehow keep reality at bay. Snow tapped softly against the windows. The suitcase sat open on the table. The key felt heavier every time my fingers brushed it. I picked up the phone. A recorded voice tried to sell me insurance. I hung up harder than I meant to and immediately felt foolish for hoping it would be my son or daughter. I called Brandon again. Voicemail. I waited exactly 1 minute and tried again. Still nothing. I dialed Melissa next. Her voicemail was sharp, professional, distant. No warmth, no reassurance. By mid-morning, I had stopped counting how many times I'd called. The house felt smaller with every unanswered ring. Family photos lined the walls. Brandon holding his first fish, Melissa in her graduation gown. Smiles frozen in time, mocking me. I tried to convince myself that this was all coincidence, a misunderstanding, but the numbers on that paper refused to leave my mind. 5. At 9 sharp, my phone buzzed. A text message. From an unknown number. Ask Melissa about Seattle. Ask her about the money. Trust no one. My heart thudded hard once, then again. Seattle? Money? None of it made sense. Melissa was a public defender. Brandon worked in consulting. They were successful. Yes, but nothing that explained secret suitcases and coded messages. Before I could reply, the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't a recording. Mr. Bennett? A woman's voice asked. Calm. Controlled. This is Officer Lauren Matthews with the Salt Lake City Police Department. The world tilted. She said my son's name. I asked the only question that mattered. Is he hurt? There was a pause. 1 second. Then, we don't know where he is, sir. She explained that Brandon's house was empty. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. Just gone. She asked me to come to Salt Lake City as soon as possible. I asked what kind of situation this was. She said she'd rather explain in person. Then she asked a question that hit harder than any accusation. Does your son have any reason to disappear? Disappear. I packed without thinking. Cash. Clothes. The suitcase key. The paper with the numbers. Before leaving, I stood at Eleanor's grave, snow already covering her name, and whispered that I was scared, that something was wrong with our children, that I didn't know how to fix it. As I pulled onto the highway, another message came through. The key opens box 189. Zion's Bank, Temple Square. You have until 00005. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. 3 hours to Salt Lake City. Less than 14 hours to midnight. And whatever my children had done was about to come into the light. I thought I was driving toward answers. I didn't yet know I was driving straight into a crime that had been building for 8 years, and that by midnight, my own name would be dragged into it. Salt Lake City appeared through the falling snow just after noon. The drive felt longer than it was. My mind replayed every memory of my children, searching for signs I had missed. By the time I reached the address Officer Matthews gave me, my hands were stiff on the steering wheel and my chest felt tight. Brandon's house looked perfect. Too perfect. A 2-story home with white trim. Holiday wreaths still hanging. A Christmas tree glowing inside the front window like nothing in the world was wrong. No cars in the driveway. No footprints in the snow. No movement at all. Officer Matthews waited on the porch. She was younger than I expected. Sharp eyes. Calm posture. The kind of person who noticed details others ignored. She didn't call me George. She called me Mr. Bennett. That distance told me everything. Where's my son? I asked. That's what we're trying to determine. The door was unlocked. Inside, warmth rushed over me, followed immediately by silence. The house was staged for a celebration that never happened. Champagne bottles sat untouched. Name cards were arranged neatly on a table. Folding chairs stood in a circle like guests had vanished mid-breath. How long has he been gone? I asked. We're not sure. Lights have been on since last night. Every room told the same story. Nothing broken. Nothing missing. Everything wrong. Then we reached the study. The desk was chaos. Bank statements. Spreadsheets. Legal documents. My name printed across them again and again. George Arthur Bennett. Officer Matthews showed me an account summary. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moving through accounts I'd never opened. Transfers. Withdrawals. Offshore wires. All under my identity. Did you authorize any of this? She asked. No. She showed me another file. Shell companies. 8 of them. Millions moved over years. Still using my name. The room swayed. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. She asked me to come to the station. I asked for 5 minutes. After a pause, she agreed. I searched the study with shaking hands until I found a locked drawer. The brass key from the suitcase slid in perfectly. 189. Inside was a letter. Brandon's handwriting. He confessed everything. 8 years of fraud. My identity used as cover. My daughter involved. His wife involved. Millions stolen. Another transfer planned. A final upload scheduled at 5 minutes past midnight. Evidence that would destroy them all. I folded the letter just as footsteps sounded in the hallway. Fear took over. I opened the window. The drop was painful. My knee screamed, but staying meant cuffs and silence. I ran until my lungs burned, blending into the city crowds, knowing one thing for certain. My son wasn't missing. He was hiding. I escaped the house, But I was still running straight toward the truth. And the next step would lead me to a bank vault holding proof that could erase my children forever. I didn't stop running until my legs refused to carry me anymore. Salt Lake City was alive with New Year's energy. People laughed. Music spilled from doorways. No one noticed the old man shaking in the corner of a coffee shop, gripping a paper cup like it was keeping him alive. Paid cash. Sat in the back. Tried to breathe. My son's letter replayed in my head. 8 years. Millions stolen. My name on everything. I searched the name mentioned in the letter. James Patterson. IT didn't take long. Financial consultant. Former business partner. Clean public record. I called before I could talk myself out of it. He answered on the first ring. George, he said. I was wondering when you'd call. My stomach dropped. He told me where to go. Zion's Bank. Temple Square. Side entrance. 4:30 sharp. No delays. I arrived early. The alley was narrow. Quiet. One security camera overhead. Snow falling slow and steady. At exactly 4:30, a door opened. A man in his early 40s stepped out. Calm. Alert. Mr. Bennett, he said. Brandon sent me your photo months ago. I didn't like that. How do I know this isn't a trap? I asked. You don't, he replied. But if I wanted you arrested, I'd already have called the FBI. That word stuck. FBI. We moved fast. Down into the vault. Rows of metal boxes. Fluorescent lights humming. James spoke quietly as we walked. Melissa destroyed me 10 years ago. Framed me. Brandon believed her. I lost everything. We stopped at box 189. James pulled out a brass key identical to mine. 2 keys. 2 hands. 1 turn. The box slid open. Inside was a USB drive and a thick folder sealed in plastic. James didn't smile. Everything is here, he said. Transactions. Shell companies. Victims. He showed me names. Elderly. Sick. Alone. Melissa used her job to gain trust. Power of attorney. Fake emergencies. Slow theft. 23 victims. $5.1 million. My daughter. My son helped manage it. Then James showed me another document. A scheduled transfer. $4.3 million. Time. 00006. 1 minute after the evidence uploads. James said. Brandon planned to steal it and disappear. I felt sick. Where is he? I asked. Grand America Hotel. Room 418. He can't stop the upload alone. James's phone buzzed. 60 seconds, he said. We need to go. We stepped back into the alley. That's when I saw her. Allison, my daughter-in-law. She stood under the streetlight with 2 men beside her. Her hands slid into her coat. Calm. Trained. Certain. James whispered one word. Run. But there was nowhere to run. And the moment Allison raised her weapon, I knew this story was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. The gun came out smoothly. No shaking. No hesitation. Allison held it like she'd done this before. The streetlight reflected off the metal as she aimed it toward us. Her expression calm in a way that made my skin crawl. The 2 men beside her moved without speaking, spreading out like this was routine. Back inside, she said. 1 second pause. Slow. James raised his hands. I did the same. My heart hammered, but my mind went strangely clear. I had been afraid of many things that day. This wasn't one of them. We backed through the side entrance into the bank. Motion lights flickered on. Marble floors gleamed under fluorescent white. The door locked behind us with a final, heavy sound. Trapped. Allison's men took positions near the doors. Professionals. No wasted movement. She kept the gun on me. Give me the USB, she said. Where's my son? I asked. She laughed. One sharp sound. Your son stopped being yours a long time ago. James spoke calmly. This ends tonight, Allison. She shook her head. It ends if I say it does. I understood then. Melissa found the victims. Allison moved the money. Brandon was the face. I was the fall guy. You framed James, I said. I tried to save him, she replied. He didn't stay useful. Her finger tightened. Then the front doors opened. Melissa walked in. For 1 second, hope surged in my chest. Put the gun down, I said. Melissa walked past me. Allison, this is over, she said. Allison froze. You started this. I controlled it, Melissa replied. You and Brandon were tools. Something inside me broke. Allison turned the gun toward Melissa. Then the doors exploded inward. FBI, drop your weapons. Red laser dots filled the room. Allison's men dropped to the floor instantly. Allison hesitated. Just 1 second. Then she let the gun fall. Handcuffs clicked. Melissa smiled until they cuffed her too. Melissa Bennett, the agent said. You're under arrest. Her face twisted. She looked at me with pure anger. This is your fault. You stopped being my daughter when you chose this, I said. They took her away screaming. Agent Matthews approached me. We need to talk. After I see my son, I said. She hesitated. 1 second, then nodded. Room 418. He's still there. James touched my shoulder. We have hours before midnight. I looked toward the exit. I wasn't chasing a criminal. I was going to face my son. The FBI had my daughter in cuffs. But my son was still free and waiting for me behind a hotel door where the final countdown had already begun. The Grand America Hotel rose above the city like a monument to money and secrets. Inside, New Year's Eve celebration filled the lobby. Music, laughter, champagne glasses clinking. None of it felt real. James and I moved through the crowd without speaking, straight to the elevators. 4th floor. The hallway was silent, sealed off from the party below. Soft carpet, muted lights. At the far end stood room 418. I stopped 1 step short of the door. Behind it was my son. Not the man he'd become. The boy I'd taught to throw a baseball. The child who cried when he scraped his knees. I raised my hand, then knocked. The door opened immediately. Brandon stood there pale and shaking. His eyes were red. His voice cracked when he spoke. Dad, you came. The room smelled stale, and used food trays sat outside. Screens glowed on a desk. A digital timer counted down. 5 hours. James stepped inside. We opened box 189. Brandon's shoulders sagged. Then you know. He collapsed into a chair and started talking. Words poured out. How Melissa pitched the scheme as protection. How success followed. How quitting became impossible. How Allison had been placed in his life on purpose. I tried to stop it, he said. I built the upload. I asked the question that mattered. The last transfer, 4.3 million. Was it yours? Silence. Then a nod. I was going to take it and run. I felt something die in my chest. You were going to leave me with the wreckage, I said. You're old, he snapped. You don't need it. I do. I stepped back. I raised you better than this. You raised me weak, he shouted. Honor doesn't pay. I went to the window. Snow drifted over the city. Eleanor's voice echoed in my memory. Do what's right. A knock thundered at the door. FBI. Before anyone could move, glass shattered in the bathroom. Allison climbed through the window, gun in hand. The timer read 3 hours. She smiled. Now we talk about loyalty. With a gun in the room, the FBI at the door, and the countdown ticking, my son made one final offer that would test whether blood truly meant more than justice. The room froze. Allison sat in the desk chair, the gun steady in her hands. Brandon stood near the screens, eyes darting between the countdown and my face. James stayed by the window, calm, unmoving. The timer kept ticking. 3 hours, then less. Allison spoke first. No one else comes in. 1 second pause. No one leaves. Brandon swallowed hard. We can still stop it. I didn't answer. He stepped toward me. Dad, listen. If the upload finishes at 5 minutes past midnight, everything explodes. Prison. Headlines. Ruined lives. 1 second pause. But if we stop it now, the last transfer goes through. I looked at the screen. $4.3 million. Scheduled. Waiting. Brandon's voice dropped. I'll give you half. James turned sharply. Don't. I mean it, Brandon said. Enough to save the ranch. Enough to disappear. No one ever has to know. Allison nodded. No evidence. No case. The words hit me like blows. My son was offering me blood money. Give it to charity if you want, Brandon added quickly. Just let me have the rest. I can start over. I saw the boy he used to be flicker behind his eyes. Then it vanished. My phone vibrated. A text from Agent Matthews. SWAT is in position. Your call decides everything. I read it once. Then again. If I stopped the upload, they would all walk free. Melissa, Allison, Brandon. The victims would never see justice. My name would stay buried under lies. If I didn't, I would lose my son forever. The clock read 11:47. Brandon dropped to his knees. Please, I'm begging you. I thought of scraped knees, training wheels, late-night talks about right and wrong. I thought of Dorothy Martinez and the others who trusted my daughter. I walked to the desk. Brandon's face lit up. Dad. I closed the laptop. He screamed. Allison raised the gun. Open it. Now. Shoot if you want, I said. 1 second pause. I'm not afraid of dying. James stepped beside me. You'll have to kill us both. The timer beeped. 11:58. The door exploded inward. FBI. Drop the weapon. Red laser dots covered Allison's chest. She dropped the gun. Agents tackled Brandon as he lunged for the desk. You're not my father, he screamed. Tears burned my eyes. I know. Outside, fireworks began. Midnight arrived. The upload completed. As my children were taken away in cuffs, I realized justice had won. But the price was everything I loved, and the aftermath would be worse than the night itself. The room emptied fast. Agents moved with practiced efficiency. Evidence bags. Handcuffs. Orders spoken in calm voices. Brandon was dragged past me, screaming words I'll never forget. Allison walked out silent, her face empty. Melissa didn't look at me at all. When the door finally closed, the noise disappeared. Only silence remained. James placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. I wasn't sure there was such a thing anymore. Agent Matthews returned a few minutes later. Her tone was softer now. Mr. Bennett, you're not a suspect. You're a victim. Your identity was stolen. For how long? I asked. 8 years. 8 years of lies. She explained that the FBI had been watching quietly, waiting to see who would betray whom, waiting to see if I would warn them. Most parents would have. I didn't feel strong. I felt hollow. I gave my statement sometime after 1 in the morning. The coffee tasted like ash. My hands shook, but I told the truth. Every part of it. They'll go to prison, she said. Your son may get less time if he cooperates. Your daughter won't. I nodded. It was all I had left. James drove me out of the city as snow fell again. The roads were empty. The silence stretched for miles. At dawn, I returned to the ranch. Pete was waiting. He didn't ask questions. He just poured coffee and let me sit. Later, I walked to Eleanor's grave and knelt in the snow. I chose justice, I whispered. I hope you understand. The news spread quickly. Phones rang. Messages stacked up. I didn't answer any of them. Weeks later, the ranch sold. Months later, sentencing came. 10 years. 25. 28. Numbers that swallowed lives. Brandon looked back once. I didn't look away. I moved to a small place where no one knew my name. Brandon wrote letters. Melissa never did. Time didn't heal anything. It just taught me how to breathe with the pain. 1 year later, on another New Year's Eve, a knock on my door forced me to face the final question. Had I truly done the right thing, or had justice simply left me alone to live with the cost? 1 year later, New Year's Eve came again. There were no fireworks near my apartment. No music. Just falling snow and the slow ticking of a clock on the wall. I was sitting alone when someone knocked on the door. It was James. He held a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. Some silences are earned. We sat by the window watching snow erase the street below. He asked how I was doing. I told him the truth. I wake up every day. That's about it. He nodded. Brandon wrote once a month. His letters were quieter now. Less anger. More regret. He said he thought about the victims every night. I wrote back only once. I love you, but I can't protect you from your choices. Melissa never replied to any of my letters. I still wrote them. Every month. I told her I loved her. I told her I forgave her. I told her I was here if she ever wanted to speak. The envelopes always came back unopened. Near midnight, James raised his glass. To survival. I echoed it. When the clock struck 12, I didn't celebrate. I remembered the hotel room, the countdown, the moment I closed the laptop. I remembered choosing truth while everything inside me screamed to choose my child instead. James stood to leave. At the door he paused. Eleanor would be proud. I wasn't sure. After he left, I sat alone with an old photograph. Eleanor smiling. Brandon 9 years old. Melissa 7. All of us whole. All of us unaware of what the future would demand. I thought about what I'd taught my children. Right and wrong. Honor. Hard work. But I hadn't taught them this. That love without accountability isn't love at all. That shielding someone from consequences only teaches them how to fall harder. I'm an old man now. I've lost my family, my home, and the life I thought I'd earned. But 23 families got justice. 23 lives were spared further harm. That has to mean something. I turned off the light and went to bed, wrapped in Eleanor's quilt, listening to the building settle around me. Tomorrow, I would wake up and keep living, because sometimes, survival is the final responsibility left to you. If you're raising children, don't wait for a midnight countdown to teach them accountability. Love them fiercely, but never protect them from the weight of their own choices. I'm 68 years old now. I wake up early out of habit. No cattle to feed. No land to walk. Just a small apartment and the quiet that comes with starting over when there's nothing left to protect. I make coffee and sit by the window, watching strangers live the life I once had. People ask if time heals. It doesn't. Time teaches you how to carry the wound without letting it crush you. Some mornings, I still reach for Eleanor without thinking. Some nights, I hear Brandon's voice in my dreams, angry and broken. Melissa's silence hurts in a different way. Silence has weight, presses harder the longer it lasts. I replay that night often. The hotel room, the countdown, the moment my son begged me to save him from consequences. If I had stopped the upload, we could have pretended nothing happened. I could have kept my children close. I could have lived comfortably, quietly, and guilty for the rest of my life. But 23 families would still be bleeding. I don't call what I did bravery. I call it obedience to truth. Doing the right thing rarely feels heroic when you're the one paying for it. The courts closed the case months ago. The stolen money was returned where it could be. Some damage can't be undone. I learned that too late. I still write to Melissa. I don't know why. Hope, maybe, or stubborn love. I tell her I forgive her. That forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. But it does keep bitterness from finishing the job her choices started. Brandon writes less now. He says prison changes a man. I believe him. Whether it changes him enough is something I'll never control. And that's the lesson I leave you with. Love is not rescue. Love is not silence. Love is not pretending your child is innocent when they've chosen harm. Love is teaching them to stand when they fall, and letting them face the ground when they jump. If you're a parent, don't wait until a stranger's clock is counting down your family's future. Pay attention. Ask hard questions. Hold your children accountable while there's still time to guide them. I lost everything I loved, but I didn't lose my soul. Some stories are meant to comfort. This one is meant to warn. If you've listened this far, thank you for carrying this weight with me. Remember this story when love tempts you to protect someone from the truth. Sometimes, the hardest form of love is letting justice speak.